Hello friends, welcome back once again to the live video of xBhp. And right now we are doing something very powerful, which is why we call it the xBhp Power Talks. One thing that actually pulsates the hearts of all the bikers is racing. Now, when we talk about racing, one thing that comes in mind, especially when you are in India, one thing that really comes to your mind is FMSCI. And there are a lot of things attached to it. So people have a lot of questions, people have a lot of doubts. So we thought like it will be best to hear the answers from the person who is actually sitting there in FMSCI, and not only in FMSCI but in FIM as well. So without any further ado, let me do the honors of inviting Mr. Sujith Kumar. I will just quickly bring him here, and here you go. Welcome, Sujith. Thank you so much for being here and accepting our request to be here today with us and discussing some questions that we have in our minds. Now, before I go ahead and start asking you my questions, the questions that I have listed down for you, based on my experiences and all the other bikers' experiences, why don't you just quickly go ahead and tell people something about you and your experiences into racing and all?
Hi, Manan. It's a pleasure to be with you on this show. And see, for me, I'm a biker first. I started off as a biker. I got into motorsport by chance, actually, by doing a picnic rally, and then got hooked on to some professional motorsport, and then getting on to cars.
Lovely. So now that was something very brief and quick. Now, as you said, like you've been a biker yourself, and I know for the fact that you have been into racing a lot. Now, I think that is where the roots come from, the FMSCI and FIM. Why don't you just let everyone know, like, how has been your racing experience so far
Um,
as a racer yourself?
Sorry?
As a
Sorry?
racer yourself.
No, frankly speaking, I've never raced on a motorcycle myself. But then I was more into rallying. And with all my experience, I've been handling some motorsport teams for Yamaha. We handle teams for on motocross tracks and circuit racing tracks. That's the experience which I have with circuit racing.
Nice, that's great. So now, before I actually go ahead and ask further questions, I have one thing that comes in my mind. Like looking at the past, say almost like a decade or 10 years back, how much do you think the Indian motorsport scene has changed?
Uh, See, the main change has been the manufacturers coming into the sport.
Right.
This has made motorcycle racing much more accessible compared to what we had those days. And these manufacturers actually provide a first step by having their one make series or championships. Then by supporting the best riders who emerge uh, from their championships to move up into the national competitions. Then they take them on to international racing. The cost to race for a weekend in a one make series is about 40 to 50 US dollars. It's I could say this is the cheapest in the world. Racing in India is the cheapest in the world, and
Wow.
our national championship is very strong, and our promoters along with our manufacturers have set their vision to see our riders participate in the best of the international events.
Wow, that is great. So you've been yourself into as part of the racings and rally and other things. You have seen a lot changing all these years. Now, what is your like if you have to compare to those Sholavaram days when it was like so according to some people actually it was better than what we have today. What do you think about it?
Frankly speaking, I've been to only one event in Sholavaram. That was the last year, which ran in Sholavaram. See, those days, you could argue that Sholavaram was any day better than today. But then there was just one huge weekend motorsport event per year held at a airstrip. People had no televisions those days, and if you wanted to be part of it, you have to go to the race to watch it. And it attracted close to about 50,000 people and was a real festival of racing for both cars and motorcycles those days.
That is great.
Once the television began, it started reducing crowds, and these days people can watch races via free live streaming anywhere they have an internet connection. There are also many races held per year. You can say at least we have a national championship weekend. We have 25 races, different classes. We have 25 races over a weekend. So imagine those days, and those championship events. We have 6 of them every year. And those days, it would be one big, huge event a year. Then there were also many races per year, and which actually created further dilution of the crowd. This also, I've seen over the years that this presents event promoters with an extra challenge that they have to provide other attractions for crowd to be coming into the tracks to watch, such as live music and shows to get spectators come along. To get numbers less than half the size of Sholavaram takes a huge effort, be it organizational and also it's going to be very expensive to bring in people to watch races today on the track.
Right. So, with continuing with that particular thought, I would like to understand what are those things that, according to you, that have contributed to the recent growth of Indian motorsports? Because now a lot of youngsters participate in the motorsports championships. A lot of companies are coming forward and contributing towards the championships. So, what do you think, according to you, that has contributed to the recent growth?
Frankly speaking, or I can say really, it's the participation of manufacturers which has changed the game. The FIM also supports their efforts to ensure, or the FMSCI and FIM, they support their efforts to ensure that the rider training and safety are kept in high standards. Some manufacturers hold small talent hunt events around the country to find youngsters with the potential to become professional racers. Honda, TVS, Suzuki, and now that we have Hero, they're all very active in their respect. And I can also proudly say that Honda has got their best racing machines, the NSF 250 machines, into India. And we have a class in the championship where we have all kids below the age of 15 and 16 coming into the sport. And with just a year, we've got a few riders who are very, very talented.
That is great. So, considering or not considering actually, talking about the same point that you have just mentioned about the age. Now, what do you I just would like to understand from your side, what should be the right age for people to start participating, or I should say, the kids to start participating in the races or to start learning for the races?
It again depends on which category of motorcycles they race, and it also depends on their physical structure. And I would suggest anything about 8 or 9 years should be an ideal age for us in India.
Wow, that's great. That is good. So I think that is the right time, because that is the time when kids actually have a lot of agility, and they also are very uh, focus, or maybe it is just like they are like mud, so you can mold it in any shape. So it is more like that. Now, coming to the other point that I have, I would like to ask you, because you yourself are a vice president for FIM Asia, so you must have seen a lot of things all around Asia. Now, how do you think India fares when it comes to motorsports when compared to the other Asian countries?
Um, See, first is we are actually improving rapidly. It's thanks to the collaboration between FIM Asia manufacturers and the continental unions and the federations. This year, for example, FIM Asia has been covering travel costs for young riders to compete in the FIM Asia Cup. Unfortunately, due to the pandemic, we have yet to start off with a round. In fact, the FIM Asia also sponsored riders last year as well.
Mm-hmm.
Then in the FIM Asia Cup, in the Asia Talent Cup, which is the containments, the FIM Asia Talent Cup, which is the continent's main path to the World Championship racing. Last year, there were 6 Indian riders who made it through to the final selections. One of them went on all the way, and he was supposed to participate in the championship this year.
Wow. So that is a very good growth from the perspective of Indian scenario of the motorsports and other things. Now, when we're talking about India in Asia, I would like to understand what do you think? Like, where does the Asian continent itself stand pertaining to motorsports when compared to the other regions like maybe Europe or maybe America or other parts of the world?
Um, See, now that we have a few riders who have been participating in the Moto2 Championship this year.
Yeah.
And Asia has now many riders coming through the ranks in the World Championship as well, led by the Malaysian MotoGP rider, Hafiz Siarin. Then you have a few Moto2 riders from Thailand, and with several young Indonesian racers making their way to the World Super Sport as well as the
Right.
GP race.
That is great. That's great.
India is on the rise in the off-road racing also, thanks to strong domestic championships. I'm sure we could see a lot more riders in the Asian Championships soon.
Right. So now, if I have to understand one thing, like we have understood about like how the scenario of the entire continent is in terms of the motorsports, what do you think? Like, what is because you have also experienced so much. What do you think? Like, why? Because every time when we talk about racing, one name of one particular region that comes up is Europe. So, what do you think? Like, why Europe has such a domination in this particular area of motorsports?
Um, Motorsport racing of all types originally grew out of Europe, if you see. And the countries that now lead the sport, like Italy and Spain, they've developed systems that spot talented riders very young.
Right.
Sets them on a development path that takes the best out of them through to the World Championship.
Mm-hmm.
India and other Asian countries have been putting similar systems in place during recent years, which is helping them to catch up.
Perfect. So now, since we are talking about racing and other parts, I'm sure a lot of people would want to understand that how to get into racing. So if there are people on, I'm sure a lot of people are there because I see one question which has come up right in the beginning. Yeah. So the question was this, which is there on the screen as well. Sir, how to get an FMSCI certificate? If possible, could you please share the details in brief? because I'm sure a lot of youngsters, they want to get into racing, but they don't know how to. They don't know how expensive or cheap or affordable will that be. So how to take it forward?
No, I didn't understand the question. It says FMSCI certificate. Is it the
Yeah,
FIM
the
license?
license basically. The
FMSCI
license.
license?
Yeah.
See, it's not a very difficult thing to do. All you need to do is just log on to the FMSCI website. There are systems in place. Just download the forms. There are online application forms available. And it's not expensive. It's about 2,000 rupees a year. And again, it depends on what category of racing you want to do.
Hmm.
And that's it. It's not very difficult at all.
Wow. So now coming forward to the other kinds of races that we have, one thing which is really, really popping up in the international races, even in the MotoGP, we have introduced the electric vehicles. So Moto E is there. So what do you think? Like, what is your thought of bringing in the E or electric vehicles into the racing part? Or what do you think is the future of the electric vehicles in the racing, especially in India?
Now that most of the championships are going green, uh, it it could be a very popular sport. But again, racing is all about the the noise the motorcycle makes.
Yeah. Yeah.
It all goes down to that, and though it looks very exciting, people want to hear the noise. I used to go to the racetrack just to listen to the noise,
Right.
but when the world is going green, we have to follow this. And I think now that we have the Moto E class in most of the World Championships,
Right.
and once we have our manufacturers in India as well, I'm sure they would like to get into motorsport.
Right. So now, since you yourself have been into this particular category for such a long time, uh, one question that I would like to ask is, what do you think are the roadblocks that is actually stopping India to grow at the pace which we should in the terms of the motorsports?
Mm, See, there are some cultural and some regulatory hurdles to overcome. Culturally, I could say it is difficult to convince parents to send their children into motorsport because of the physical dangers and the high costs involved. The regulatory roadblocks are largely Indian import policies. Currently, it is very difficult and expensive to bring proper race machinery that is essential for young riders in our country. Furthermore, import policies and visa issues prevent international championships also from holding grounds in India,
Right.
which holds back our sports development. But looking at the current scenario, if you see yesterday, uh, motorsport has been they've involved motorsport also, included motorsport also into our sporting system, where a sportsman or who could a sportsman could get a government job.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So I think, and with the with all the efforts which people from our federation are putting in, I think we
Mm-hmm.
should overcome all these issues very soon.
Right. So probably an arbitrary question, but do you see an Indian racer on the world stage, especially like in road racing? Because we have seen some of the racers going to the Dakar and all, but in the road racing, maybe in Isle of Man or maybe in MotoGP or maybe in Moto 3 or Moto E or in any other world super sports.
Why
Because
not? Yes, within the
yeah.
next few years, we should have Indian riders on the world stage. Uh, this is most likely to be somebody who's come through the Asia Talent Cup. It is
Mhm.
also worth mentioning that in the world's toughest off-road race, the Dakar, we have two Indian manufacturers supporting two Indian riders,
Right.
and they are actually performing very well and finishing strongly.
Absolutely. So we understood, like you have also mentioned that the bike manufacturers should play a role and should encourage more or should participate more in the races and all, and that is how we might actually gain traction in the motorsports. But at the same time, what do you think, what role government can play to ensure that the racing becomes better or racing becomes more like a much accepted motorsports in India? Because it is there in many parts of the world, but unfortunately not here in India, at
See,
least.
like I've already mentioned, uh, the import policies and visa issues. Along with that, we also need some government support to facilitate the import of race machinery to enable to attract international events. And once you get them, uh, naturally the sport grows.
Right. So we have some of the championships which are already going on. So, like for example, JK Championship is there, and some other championships are there. So, what do you like? What do you think? Like how they have affected the entire Indian motorsports?
Uh, see, the MRF is actively involved in National Racing Championship
Absolutely. Yeah.
along with the Madras Motorsports Club, and we also have the National JK Tire Superbike Festival, Superbike Cup, which is actively supported by JK Tires, and at the both international circuit, and it is the biggest motorsport event of the year, which takes place every year during the end of November. And there are, with these kind of events, there are plenty of associated shows and attractions over the weekend, and we are now getting in crowds of more than 30,000 people. They've also promoted, JK Tires also has promoted the FIM Asia Cup for the last 3 years, and unfortunately, I don't know whether we'll be able to do it this year due to the pandemic, and it's difficult for people to travel.
Right.
And the MRF MMSC National Championship is a very, very strong championship with over 250 riders over the weekend with different categories. It's like a festival over a weekend. We have about 25 races over the weekend, which start from Thursday and till Sunday.
Right. So, don't you think, like as you said, like you're not sure whether will it be possible this year or not, because obviously you cannot gather so many people over there. But just like the MotoGP is happening, it is happening. It is just that the audiences, physical audiences, are not there, but the racers are there. So, do you think like there are possibilities to conduct races or the championships in that format?
Absolutely. We are just waiting for the government to allow us to organize events. And once that's done, we are all ready. We already have systems in place, and the promoters are ready with the thing where they are ready to hold events.
That is great. So because I'm sure a lot of people would be so excited, even if they cannot go and watch the races, they can at least watch the live streaming on Facebook or YouTube or other platforms, or maybe if there are some tie-ups with the TV channels, then it will be even better. So yeah. Now coming to like because we also have a paucity of time in hand and we have to wrap up things. Now, with that, you have more than enough experience in racing or so. And is there anything that you would like to say to someone who is looking to make racing a career?
See, for me, I would say riders should start young at the minimum age of about 11 years and cut their teeth in the manufacturers' championships. I would also stress, especially for the parents, that they should not compromise on safety gear. Now that we have world-class safety gear available, uh, they should not be just looking at saving costs, but to ensure that their children race with the highest standard safety care.
That is great. So, with that particular note, I have another point. What do you would like to tell to the youngsters or to any biker for that matter who actually buy powerful bikes and then they start to ride fast? I would not say that they are racing, because there are, yes, there are people who actually try to race with other people on the streets, or maybe they just feel that they are invincible because their bikes can go very fast. What would you like to tell to them, because they might look up to you, they might think that, okay, yeah, see, he's been into races and there are so many racers there out there in the market. So
Yeah,
what is so
I understand any youngster wants to ride fast, but then it is always better that these guys ride at a place where the environment is safe. That's why we have racetracks. It's better to race on tracks than on road. Racing on roads is dangerous, not just for themselves as well as the public.
right? So one very quick question, which I am sure would be very relevant, and I think you would be the best person to answer that. Now, if I or not only me, but if anybody of regardless of any age would want to get into racing, what will be the steps? Like, how can they actually get into racing?
Uh,
Well, obviously, as soon as they start, they will not get a team to participate in, or maybe
that's
team.
right. Now, as I've already mentioned,
Yeah,
for a starter, from what it used to be decades ago, now it's much easier. All you need is, like I said, you just come to the racetrack, have a watch. Then there are one make championships. You register for the one make championship. It is cheap, and in fact, uh, the manufacturers provide you with safety gear in case you don't have them. You don't need to, at the beginning, you don't need to buy your own safety gear. You can actually take it from them, use it, and that's the easiest or the best step for youngsters to get into racing. And there is a lot of support nowadays from most of the manufacturers. There are plenty of teams, and before all that, I would say we have got a number of racing academies, which are all available on our website. The information is available on the website. Go
right.
attend one of those academy sessions. Now it is mandatory for anybody who wants to get into racing. It is mandatory for them to first attend a training session conducted by accredited academy. You take a certificate from them, and with that certificate, you can apply for your licenses.
Wow. So that is actually great, and that is crisp for a lot of people who wants to get into racing, but they don't know how to do it. So
See, now
yeah,
we also have basic training as well as advanced training. For beginners, I would suggest they just get on to their basic trainings. All training academies have basic trainings available. It's called the level 1 training. Start with level 1 training, then come to the racetrack, register with one of the manufacturers one make series, and then get on further.
that is great. So I think the steps are now very simple in comparison to how it was in the past. So with that, thank you so much, Sujith, for giving so much of insight on the Indian motorsports and how things are improving, and especially for the youngsters who would want to get into the racing. Thank you so much for your time, and I'm glad that you were here. I hope you also enjoyed your time here.
We are always there to support riders who want to get into motorsport.
Right.
You just need to write to the federation, and we are there for you to.
That is great. So with that, I would like to thank you for being here, for giving us your time, and also all the audiences that are watching us live. and who has asked their questions, and those who could not ask their questions, please feel free to write, as Sujith has just mentioned, please feel free to write to the Federation, and they will revert to you with your relevant questions and relevant answers. So with that, I would like to say thanks to you, thanks to everyone, and we will come back next time once again with somebody else talking about biking, talking about motorcycling, and something more powerful. Because when it is power, you have to be responsible. Because as it is said, with great power comes greater responsibilities, right? So, with that, ride safe, ride hard, and ride long. Bye bye.
Thank you.